Greetings and welcome to Indian Minds in Finland, the YouTube channel that highlights the vibrant Indian community that resides, works, and flourishes in the land of thousand lakes. I'm Karthik Sindhya, your host, and I'm thrilled to share with you inspiring stories, heartfelt journeys, and contributions made by Indians to Finnish society and economy. Without further delay, let's dwell into the fusion of Indian and Finnish cultures and celebrate this diversity.
Business Finland has been supportive. European Space Agency business incubation is the next thing on the horizon for the other company, which we're quite excited about. Demographically, or going by statistic numbers, there are not many SABIC accepted companies in Finland which come from Indian origin. I've seen two personally myself who had complete Indian origins to it, so we're kind of excited by that. I do know for sure of a fact that there are not many companies from Indian origin who've gone ahead and deployed satellites. So I want to do that. Just it makes business sense, but at the same time, it also is a great narrative for our community out here and the things that we're trying to do.
It's nice that you landed up here and you kind of started to build a network and you participated in quite a lot of business incubation ventures given provided by Helsinki. But you must have seen the startup culture in India and Finland and the rest of the world. So, how dynamic is the software, this startup culture in Finland, especially in Helsinki?
It,
Probably it's much.
it's next, it's next level. And my perspective does not just come from India. That perspective comes from India, Qatar, United States, and the United Kingdom. Although I wasn't really running my startups in those countries, but when you live in these countries and somewhere at the back of your mind you have something that this is something that I may get into, you can to understand how things are rolling out there. So with whatever little experience that I have, I think it's very dynamic. Things are available in a way on a platter, but the problem is that the gatekeepers or the doors should be open for you, and once you actually enter those doors, life is a lot more easier. So I'll share one little example, and this is for anyone who's coming to Finland to set up their own startup. When I came to Finland, I set up my office at A grade, Aalto University. They have this little cluster where all startups generally have co-working spaces in Otaniemi. So that's where I came in, and I set up, yeah, Otakari 5. So that's where I set up my first office, and I think paying 325 euros for one seat. Uh, Today I have seven people working in one location, three people in another location. I've got three offices, uh, and I pay a grand total of 150 euros. I used to pay 300 something for that one seat, and today I'm paying, and all of this is basically because of the availability of the ecosystem, the things that are available to us. So when we go through the EdTech Hub accelerator program for mandatory, we got a free office space in Kampi, bang in the center of Helsinki. Uh, the ex Alto School for Economics. So that's where the office right now is. Three people sitting out there. We then go through another accelerator program in Helsinki XR Center, which is basically an investment that was made by the city of Helsinki to a tune of a couple of million euros to create a complete VR studio. Any imaginable VR asset that you need to develop things, they give it to you for free if you're a part of the startup hub. So that's office number one. The second office is in the Metropolia campus, Arabia 135A, the XR center that I was speaking of. So anything imaginable that you can imagine to do with VR, we have access to that. And the third office is in Design Factory, which is now moving from Aalto University. So Otanemi, the bus stop, right bang opposite Otanemi is where the factory is. And this is where all the prototyping for the things we're trying to make for Signal actually happens. So we have access to anything from foam cutters to PCB board makers, all facilities included available to us. And I mean, you can't imagine all of these things available to us, one set of company, and you have access to all of this for free. So these things actually accelerate your product development. You can quickly go to the market. You can test a lot more things easily, and that's the beauty of the accelerator program out here. The day we actually graduated from the EdTech hub, we actually received Tempo on that day. And that day meant to be a pitch where all the startups who went through the incubation had to do a pitch. And there were three judges. You had the Business Finland head of Tempo, Kimmo Koponen, a part of it. Then you had Tita Mantilla from Opiva Invest. She's the CEO of Opiva Invest. She was there, and a VC in Sparkmind VCs. I think Marco was his name. And it was very cool that I was making my pitch. Halfway through my pitch, Kimo Koponen goes, "We like the pitch. We've already funded you today, haven't we?" I was like, "Yeah, I received the money a couple of hours ago before walking into the pitch." So that sense of the word, Finland has been very kind. Things
Yeah,
have worked out,
I think it's I would say that it's a right experience probably many of us have had, and this kind of startup incubation exists all over Finland. Every small city also has Jyväskylä have their own startup culture, and
right.
where there is, I think you have been in some of those places where
We
we
did.
they give quite a lot of
I remember
office
Muscular.
space.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it was wonderful.
and I'm sure Kopio and every other place has that, and there's quite a lot uh, of emphasis provided and facilities provided in not only coaching and helping the startups to grow, but also help them in getting the necessary funding. And of course, Business Finland does its part. And one more thing we find, at least I found quite nice, is here accessibility to customers. So they are never very far, and people are quite open when you call them and say that, okay, you're trying to do something and you would like to have a chat and talk about it, and they are not that far. For example, I have known during my business times when I had a company, so I just called the CTO of a company and told him what I'm trying to do, and the next in few minutes we had a meeting scheduled to meet and discuss about it. And it's that easy to get access to the right people. They're not that far, and people are open to listen to you. And I don't know how easy it happens in India, because there are several layers before you reach the top management. But
I'll
here I
say this.
feel
I'll
accessibility.
say reaching to the top of the food chain in India is very hard. There is a process, or there's a culture that protects the top of the food chain from anyone to approaching them, which is not the case in Finland. So I'll share my recent experience within one of the areas of what Mandatory is doing. We had a value proposition for a digital studio out here, Fireframe Studios. Now, the backstory to Fireframe Studios here is that Ikapanan and Miko Kodisoja, I'm not sure if I say the name right or not, these two guys made their money from Supercell. They made a lot of money, and so Miko Kodisoja has gone ahead and set up Fireframe Studios, which is a complete digital studio. He has the vision of creating movies digitally, completely in Finland, which is the first of its kind. And we had a value proposition for it. And I sent a LinkedIn message to Miko. He didn't respond. So then I picked up the phone and I called up the Fireframe studio. And I think in about 2 minutes, I was given the number of the CTO, Marco. I called up Marco and I said, okay, this is what we have. And he was like, you know what, let me just run it by Miko and let's see if we can do something. And now the process is underway to have a meeting lined up with him. Now, if you look at the net worth of this gentleman, he's probably the amongst the 10 most richest or 15 most richest people in Finland. But to reach out to this guy and his CTO in this company is as easy as picking up the phone, speaking to them, and then you have the numbers and you can have the conversation. So that's very different. If let's assume if you wish to get in touch with any of the Ambani guys, or let alone the Ambani guys, let's talk about the Jindals. If you wish to speak to the Naveen Jindal, that's not going to happen, and we all know it.
Yeah,
This is a process unless you know someone straight up.
I think
So
it's what I have seen is that uh, because of this higher levels of how many levels are there before you could reach the person, and many Indians probably we stop ourselves from thinking that this is not going to happen,
yeah,
and maybe I don't know. And I think the most important thing here is that you need to be brave enough to pick the phone and call. and things will move. And as far as you get over that inertia, I think things will start rolling quite easily here.
I think the hope needs to stay, and that's the impetus that you need. And what works out here is that hope is on. That hope is on. So then the brain is working towards it. You're not abandoning the idea halfway through, saying, "Oh, it is not going to happen." One positive response from Marku, the CTO, now keeps me thinking more about, okay, this can work. So what more can we do? What iterations can we work? And even before you know it, you're actually pushing your product forward. So that is interesting. Plus, let's just talk about the efforts that these. So Kopio has a lot of things. Yavaskala has a lot of things. Helsinki, Espoo, Vanta, all of these put together, they're doing a lot of things. So then people generally ask, what's the recipe to success? Well, this could be one of the ingredients. That's one of the reasons why innovation comes out of this country. The focus is on innovation, and then you have the routes opened up for you. Uh, so yeah, to sum it up, that's one great thing, and I'm sure a lot of people would repeat what you and I are saying out here. It's not just us. We couldn't be isolated, can we? It couldn't be an isolated situation where you and I have gotten lucky. No, we're just regular people, right? Just trying to
Yeah,
do regular things. So I'm sure there are many people who repeat the same things out here.
yeah. But I think the main thing is to get outside your comfort zone and give it a try, and make a try. So I think things will work out. And
I
I'm
think
not sure how many people would probably are thinking of starting their own ventures, which is quite positive. And I
so.
think
I'm going to go back to your initial question. What was the motivation? Uh, we have a career, and the career is decent. So I generally say this to my wife. I mean, I could get a job again, right, in the same place, maybe a role lesser, or maybe a role more, one step forward or one step backwards. Eventually we will get hired, right? So then why do this? uh, well, it's about the legacy that you want to leave for the people behind you. uh, my father used to say these things to me when he was alive, but I didn't really get understand what he was saying. I now understand it when I have my two boys, that every time, or once I became a father, there was a sense of responsibility that I need to leave something behind for my next generation now. So that's one of the motivations why we would do this. Wealth creation, yeah, absolutely, sure. That's the most apparent reason to do it. But there's also to leave a legacy behind. You need to leave something for your kids behind. You need to leave something for your clan. And when I say clan, be it our fellow Indians, or be it our fellow Asians, or whichever way you need to zoom out of it in the most macro view and come down to the most micro view, we have a responsibility to leave a little legacy behind, and that needs to be positive. So why not just do something that puts a dent in the sky while you're at it?
And I think with this ease of doing business also comes responsibility. So you cannot just fool around and do something, and the word will easily go out, and you can easily earn yourself a bad name if you screw up. And so
Like
that's
I
one of
said,
the important
it's a
things
club.
one must understand, that with the ease of business also
Right?
comes responsibility.
So that's what I say. It's a club, right? Especially in Finland. So then the word travels, and it travels fairly quick. Your reputation is important. So for any newcomer who's actually coming here, word of caution: your actions, like I said, are in the spotlight microscopically. You trying to win the trust, but then if you do end up fooling around, then it amplifies fairly quickly. So just be aware of that. Uh,
What are the things you probably are missing now? So are you looking, so you have everything figured out now? So is it that the main thing for your now company is to find new customers, or are you looking at new talent, or are you looking, so what is your prime goals
so
for your company in the near future now?
So for any startup company that is initially bootstrapping, which is the case for us at this point in time, uh, splurging or spending money is always a question that you need to think about before you actually go ahead and take any business calls. For us, what is important is the longevity of the business, or help me with the word, Karthik, out here. How much burn rate can I have? So how long is my route? So I'm always very aware of what my burn rate is and how
Hmm?
long can I survive. Yeah, or what my runway is. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
So, mandatory is working in a very frugal manner. We have paid employees, yes, more contractors or on contractual basis. We're also getting a lot of interns. So currently, we have Helsinki University interns who are working on projects of mandatory trainings. Initially, a couple of months ago, we had interns from Aalto University who worked on a couple of projects for Signal, the other company. And then Omnia is another vocational college that has given us interns to work on these projects. So yeah, so the way we're going is we're going low on full-time paid employees and more on contractual employees. But at the same time, we are increasing the workforce or the output by getting a lot of interns from Helsinki University, Omnia, and from Aalto University.
So how far are you with the product as such? So is the product ready now, or
Yes, so we piloted in Kenya, and that was basically our first international project. Technology stack to connect with your systems, predict, analyze who needs to be trained by what time, that is ready. Next part is the training program. So we built our first aviation module on marshalling an aircraft. So as the aircraft lands, how do you marshal and park the aircraft in? So we were able to run that successfully. But then here's the thing, the entire industry of aviation has about 45 different aircrafts, more or less, within the cargo and the executive and commercial aviation. Generally, one aircraft comes with 100 different complications of training programs. So, to put the story easily, we're looking at creating 4,500 different training programs. So, that is work in progress, which means for the next 2, 3, 4 years, we'll just be investing all the money that we make back into creating more modules, a complete repository of modules, and we'll be raising a lot of money from the market to further build it up, because every module is an IPR for the company. So you're building more modules means you're building more IPR. What are we doing right now? We're doing pilots, we're getting feedback, we're further perfecting the product, and we are pushing in our sales lines. Hopefully by 2024 we'll have revenue coming in from bigger airlines and bigger airports around the world, rather than the small time gigs that we're doing just to keep the operations going. For anyone who's thinking, let's come and run a business in Finland, yes, please do. Let's scale up in Finland, yes, please do. But Finland is more of a test bed market. The size of the market isn't such that will give you massive growth, but it is an entry into the European world, into the European markets. So for any guy who is running a startup already and is wanting to move his operations to Finland, just a little experience or 2 cents on my part. Finland is a great place to have your springboard from. Great compliances within the country. People appreciate a Finnish company approaching larger corporates. Yes, they do. We've experienced it personally ourselves. But then please do not build your business strategies around Finland being the only place where you'll operate. No, it's just a test bed. The bigger markets are the whole of Europe, and from there you can go about creating your plans.
yeah, I think
So,
you nailed it pretty much. The size of the market is quite small, but it provides you the test bed, and of course, the business Finland wants that you expand outside and make more. Um, you conquer bigger markets, and probably at the same way you are paying taxes in Finland, and then that's how probably they get back the money. We went through in quite good length about your experiences and how you started the company, and and also how you were able to get the necessary funding, and now having a probably some sort of a product at some level there, and now you're pilot testing and trying to get feedback and fine tuning your product further. So and I think it's you are kind of one of the this is probably one of the YouTube channels which lays out quite clearly you a startup entrepreneur's journey in Finland. So I'm sure this video would be quite useful to quite many people. But if I keep your professional experiences aside, and try to see your family as one, how have they enjoyed the stay here? So
So my wife is an Indian, but she's lived in Kenya for major part of her life. She was about 3 years old when her family moved to Nairobi, and then she came back to India for her MBBS, and then practiced in India as well as in Kenya, and then she moved to the US for her masters in public health from Brown. So she too comes with the perspective of three different countries: studying in India for her MBBS, living in Kenya while growing up, and then doing her masters in the US. And we often say this, that and this is different for everyone. Yeah, it's very individualistic, but sometimes you stumble upon heaven. Uh, I traveled to 105 countries in the past, so I know what the world looks like in a way. This is our little heaven here. We stumbled upon this place, and this is where we would want our kids to grow up and for us to grow old. So that's basically what we think of Finland.
Yeah, I think that's well said. So I think I second your thoughts, and I have very similar experiences, having lived for almost 17 years now in Finland, and I think it's a rather a very fantastic place, both from the nature, from the people side, and also the entire business ecosystem. So I think it works for me, and as it has worked for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And sorry, people whinge and whine about the weather. The weather is extreme, as we all know it. There is nothing not known. But then if you dress well and you invest initial money into proper gear, it's not that cold. Seriously.
okay, thanks, Parneet, uh, for for having this chat, and I
Pleasure.
really I thoroughly enjoyed our discussion, and I'm sure this is quite useful to everyone who is looking at this video.
The pleasure is all mine, Karthik. I think this, if people benefit out of it, it's fine. But as far as I'm concerned, this was a decent conversation with you. I loved it. So I hope people find valuable or things of value in it. But then for me, it was more about you and I talking to each other, and very organic, very natural.
Yeah,
Thank you. You've been a
thank
great listener.
yeah.